everyone, and welcome to the Nock Middle School for the first Essex State Representative Debate, sponsored by the Amesbury, Greater Newburyport, and Salisbury Chambers of Commerce, the Daily News of Newburyport, WNBP Radio, and PortMedia. Tonight's debate being carried live on PortMedia, the local cable access channel, as well as portmedia.org. I'm Pete Falcone from WNBP Radio. We thank you very much for being with us tonight. I'd like to thank the candidates for gathering with us tonight, and also our panel, which I will introduce to you right now, and also let you meet the candidates, and then in a little bit we'll give you the rules and regulations of how this is going to run tonight. So again, we thank you for being with us. Again, introducing our panelists from, let's see, that'd be your right to left. First of all, we have John McComb, the editor of the Daily News of Newburyport. Kim Goby, the chairperson of the board of Greater Newburyport Chamber of Commerce. We have Paul Gagliardi, chairman of the board of Amesbury Chamber of Commerce, and Dan Ouellette, board member of the Salem-Salisbury Chamber of Commerce. And we'd like to introduce our candidates. As they are seated at the table, they drew numbers before the start of the debate as to their seating and the way the order will run. Our first candidate from your left to right is Ed Cameron, who lives in Newburyport with his wife Suzanne and daughters Anna and Lucy. Ed has over 27 years of progressively responsible experience in the nonprofit and government sectors. Ed currently works at Community Teamwork in Lowell, where he manages a staff of 70 employees and a budget of over $30 million. With an MBA from Boston University and a bachelor's from Clark University, Ed is serving his fourth term on the Newburyport City Council. Seated next is Steve Stagnarelli, a business owner for nearly 24 years. Steve is a financial planner and tax preparer. He is the principal of Clearview Wealth Advisors, an independent state registered advisor, and College Cash Pro, a college planning service based in Amesbury. Steve is an honors graduate of UMass Lowell and Bentley College and holds the Certified Financial Planner designation. He has lived in Amesbury for 19 years. He's 49 years old, married to Kristen, father of Spencer, Zach, and Sabrina, all under age 5. Sitting next to Steve is Rama Valiante, from a family of 10 siblings with parents who instilled and demonstrated public service, working for the greater good and equal rights for all. Currently, Rama is an independent solar consultant, yoga teacher, and freelance writer, attended public schools, graduated from the University of New Hampshire. Rama started his career with Colgate-Palmolive, then as a mortgage banker for 9 years, was in the holistic health field for 10 years, including 5 as a small business owner, and has been in the recycling environmental field for the last 11 years. Next to Rama is James Kaltors. Jim has lived in the district since he was 2.5 years old. He met his wife Amanda in Amesbury. They have 2 wonderful boys, Michael, who's 5, and Tommy, who's 3. Jim graduated from Amesbury High School and received a full athletic scholarship to Villanova University, where he also obtained his master's degree in business administration. After moving back to Massachusetts, Jim obtained a law degree from the Massachusetts School of Law. He then established his own law practice in Newburyport on Harris Street. Jim has been an Amesbury City Councilor since 2010 and is currently serving as the Council Vice President. In 2012, he ran for the State Senate as an independent candidate. Jim is now looking forward to serving all the communities of the 1st Essex District after the election as its next state representative. And Ari Herzog is serving his 3rd term on the Newburyport City Council. He moved to Newburyport 7 years ago to work as an Assistant Chief Administrative Officer to Mayor Moak. Previously, he worked for 2 governors as a Special Assistant to the Secretary of Economic Development. Ari holds a Master in Public Administration from Suffolk University. Ari is self-employed in digital marketing and works part-time as Information and Communication Specialist in the Hamilton Town Hall. Those are our candidates for tonight. Now, as far as to after their closing remarks, which will come at the back end of our debate tonight. The format is as follows. Each candidate will be allowed an opening statement of 2 minutes. There'll be 10 plus questions asked of the candidates, and answers shall not exceed 1 minute. Each candidate may ask another candidate a question, and the answer shall not exceed 1 minute. They get to ask a question of one other candidate. And then they may offer a rebuttal of no more than 30 seconds in length for that particular question. Each candidate will be allowed a closing statement of 90 seconds. A timer will be present and will be strict on the timing of your answers. Gentlemen, you will be given a 30-second warning card and then a stop card. Seating of candidates, as we mentioned, was determined at 6:45 tonight, and the closing remarks will come in the reverse order of the opening remarks. So without any further ado, we will get underway with our debate for the first Essex State Representative, sponsored again by the Amesbury, the Greater Newburyport and Salisbury Chambers of Commerce, Daily News of Newburyport, WNBP Radio, and PortMedia. So we will begin the debate, and our first question comes from John McConnell. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Opening statements, I'm sorry. We will start with Ed.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to all the sponsors who helped put this evening together, and to the voters in the audience who want real information about each candidate to make an informed choice at the polls. I'm Ed Cameron. I'm a strong, independent Democrat who will work tirelessly serving Amesbury, Newburyport, and Salisbury as your next state representative. My wife Suzanne is out in the audience. Our 2 daughters, Anna and Lucy, and our dogs and cats are home, hopefully watching this on Channel 9. I grew up in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. My dad is a Navy vet, and he's also a retired public school teacher. My mom worked in a flower shop. I am about as middle class as you can get. I worked my way through college, pumping gas, scooping ice cream, sweeping floors, working as a security guard. I hold degrees both in government and in business administration, a bachelor's degree in government from Clark University in Worcester, and an MBA from Boston University. My real-life education, though, began when I started working at the Pine Street Inn, the homeless shelter in Boston, in 1987. I learned a lot about the struggles that people are facing who are seeing hard times. They're held back by a lack of education, an economy that doesn't work for a lot of Americans, substance abuse, mental health, and domestic violence. Along the way, I've worked for a great American, Boston Mayor Tom Menino. Right now, I'm a 4-term Newburyport City Councilor, been on the city's Budget and Finance Committee all 4 terms. Currently, I'm the chair of the city's Planning and Development Committee. What I've heard knocking on doors in all 3 communities: more state support for local education, more economic development, particularly for the special projects in each community, and I've heard a lot about making women's issues a priority. And by that I mean equal pay for women, protecting reproductive rights, and a commitment to domestic violence prevention. I look forward to hearing everything that other candidates want to say, and look forward to talking to you as this discussion ensues. Thank you.
Could we turn the level down just a bit? Very loud.
Request from the audience, just turn that microphone down a little bit if you can. Steve?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Steve Stanganelli. I'm an independent candidate for state representative, and I believe that I am the common sense choice for voters. Why? Because I bring an independent, nonpartisan voice and an open mind to this race. In my financial planning business, I have a motto: plan well, invest smart, live better. That's what we need to do, and I'm prepared to bring that same common sense approach to this position that I have with my clients. While I'm not a lawyer or a city councilor, I can offer a fresh, real-world perspective when it comes to how we plan on using and investing our hard-earned money. I am a CFP professional, a certified financial planner, for more than 24 years as a business owner, banker, and now as a personal financial planner and tax preparer. I have worked with families and businesses to help them make common sense out of their finances and their tax situations. And I've been on the front lines, at the kitchen tables, working with families. As noted, I'm 49 years old. My lovely wife, Kristen, is home with the 3 children. She does work as a registered dietitian. And for those of you who I have not knocked on the doors of, I have walked 135 miles during this race. Some of you may know me, some of you do not. I have worked and earned my scholarships at UMass Lowell and then at Bentley College. I have been right now a very frequent contributor to the Greater Newburyport Mothers and Families Club. I'm a former chairperson of the Birchwood Point Condo Association in Amesbury and past president of the Merrimack Valley Estate Planning Council. And as a representative, I want to help people, and my main priority will be to help people get into and stay in the middle class and help families live more affordably here. So to that end, I'm going to be proposing a number of options to help us live more affordably through tax cuts as well as investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. May I use the lectern? Thank you. I need to stand. A lot more energy and exuberance when I stand. And if any of you know me, you know I have exuberance and a lot of energy. My name is Rama Valianti. I'm running for state rep here in Amesbury, Newburyport, and Salisbury to be your next state representative. It's kind of fitting that I pulled number 3 and I'm right in the middle. I come from a family of 10, right in the middle. Actually, I was number 5 out of 9. We adopted a friend of my sister's to make it 10 later on in life. And before I forget, I want to thank all of the hosts. This is a great cast of hosts. And I want to thank all of the candidates. We have a great cast of candidates, and especially all the voters. A lot of people have asked me, why run? Why run for state rep? Well, I've been watching things basically all my life, and I've been a political junkie, and I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines and watching things when I feel like there's things that can be done to change things, to reform things. You'll hear, hopefully, some novel approaches tonight that I'm going to be proposing, such as term limits. Term limits for the Speaker of the House, term limits for the state reps and state senators. 8 years. An 8-year term limit would mean that the pensions do not kick in. As many of us are aware, pensions do not kick in for state employees till 10 years. I think anyone with the wherewithal to get themselves elected state rep or state senator can plan quite nicely for their retirement. If they can't, please see Steve Stanganelli. You're welcome. And 2-year term limit for the Speaker of the House. Please consider it a family services bill. Their loved ones and family members do not want to see them go to jail. We'll save a lot of money. Prisons are very expensive. To be continued. Thank you.
Thank you, Rama, and thank you to our hosts tonight. I want to thank all the audience members and those folks viewing this evening from home. My name is Jim Kelcourse, and I want to be your next state representative. Why? Because I want to help the folks in the district, the gentleman who approached me who has a novel business idea, I want to help him through that permitting process. Because that business is going to help Newbury, it's going to help Newburyport, it's going to help Salisbury. I want to help the senior citizen, the folks that I've met at the Salisbury Senior Center, pay for prescription health care. I want to help, as a homeowner, I want to help expand economic development in Amesbury and finish up the Lower Mill Yard. And most of all, as a parent, I want to make sure that my 2 little boys have the very best in education available to them. The same education that I had available to me. I'm a graduate from Amesbury High School. I put myself through college on a full athletic scholarship. I earned an MBA and later put myself through law school nights while I worked full-time days after I was a financial analyst for Fidelity Investments in Boston. I'm raising my family with my wife Amanda over in Amesbury, and I have my own business in downtown Newburyport. It's that business experience as a lawyer and that hard work ethic as a student athlete that I've had since I was a younger guy, since when I was baling hay right across the street, Low Street, out here where the Hope Church is now, in that field, earning money to pay for clothes for school when I was a student at Amesbury High School every summer. That's the type of hard work ethic that I want to bring to the State House for you, so I can return the local aid that you deserve, so we can provide our kids with the very best in education, so we can provide those seniors with the prescription care that we need, and so that we can offer the homeowners relief that they deserve. Because folks, this year, budget season's fast approaching, and that school budget's gonna go up again. And this coming December, we're gonna have a whole host of new folks that comes in to City Hall and says that they can't afford another tax increase. I agree with them. Revenues are up 11%, local aid's down to 0.6%. We owe them more local aid. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete, for moderating, and thank you to all the sponsors for bringing us here tonight, and thank you to everyone watching here in person and to everyone watching on the videotape. My name is Ari Herzog, and I am running as your next state representative. Let me rephrase that, though. I'm actually looking for a job, and you are the hiring committee. There's 5 people here looking for the job, full-time job. Me, I'm going to devote all of my time to you, and I ask that you give me the chance. So who am I that's not in my bio? Who am I that's not in the welcome introduction by Pete? Well, it goes back to 30 years ago. 30 years ago, 1984, I was in 3rd grade, and I was 9 years old. I remember sitting in the John F. Kennedy School cafeteria in Canton, Massachusetts. I remember the teacher, Mrs. Stockus, asking us, when we grow up, what do we want to be? And I said I wanted to be the first Jewish president of the United States of America. I don't want to be Jewish president anymore. I don't want to be president. I don't see myself in the executive branch. I see myself in the legislative branch. I'm in my 3rd term on the Newburyport City Council. When I was in 11th grade, I became vice president of my junior class, and I was elected as a write-in candidate against 5 people whose names were on the ballots. I have that initiative. I know how to get things done. 7 years ago, I moved to Newburyport, and I became a Special Assistant Chief Administrative Officer to the former mayor, John Nock. And one of the things I did soon after that job ended is I took initiative, and I created an Earth Day celebration for the entire 1st Essex District. I can make things happen. I look forward to working with you again. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to remind our candidates that they'll have 1 minute for the answers to these questions, and as far as rebuttals would come to from the next candidate, next to the person answering the question, and those rebuttals no more than 30 seconds. And we will now start our questions, and our first question will come from John McCollum.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you, Peter. Ed, what is your opinion and how will you vote on the 4 referendum questions that will be on the ballot on November 4th?
25 seconds for each of the 4. Number 1 is the repeal of the indexing on the gas tax. I'm going to vote no on that. I think we need the money for transportation. That tax is a really small part of what we pay per gallon. It hasn't changed in 20 years, so it only went from 21 to 24 cents, so I think we need that. Question 2 is the bottle bill. I will vote yes to expand what I think has been a very reasonable bill to recycle bottles from 1982. I will vote yes on that. Casinos, I'm going to vote no because I think that cat is already out of the bag, so to speak, and I think it's going to provide some economic development for at least the 3 areas that have been chosen, and also in Plainville as well. Question 4 is earned sick time. I am absolutely voting for earned sick time. That's for workers at certain size businesses, and I think that's a problem for a lot of families, especially single heads of household who get fired if they miss a few days of work, so I'm going to vote yes on that.
Thank you for the question. I would be voting for the repeal of the indexing, not repealing the gas tax increase, because as Ed mentioned, we have not had an increase adjusted for inflation for many years. So voting yes to stop it from indexing does not change that, and we do need that money. I also do believe that we need to have legislators on the record if they're going to be passing taxes. So as a compromise solution that Jai have offered, which would be changing that later on so that we have the legislature every 4 years approve or disapprove of expansions of that. For the deposit bill, I would vote no to the expansion. I think it ultimately becomes a hidden tax for a lot of families. As a family with 3 kids and trying to get things done, trying to find a place to bring and redeem bottles is just not likely to happen in our schedules, and I know a lot of working families that way. With regard to gambling, yes, I'm voting yes to repeal. And relative to earned time off, I'm voting yes, because we used to have unions that did this, we don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Number 1, eliminate the gas tax indexing. No, we need the money. The money's got to come from somewhere, folks. Roads and bridges, take a look. Where's the money going to come from? We all want these things. We all want our roads plowed, right? We want the snow removed quickly. Where's it going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? Bottle bill, yes, 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 yes. And I say get it up to 10 cents as quick as possible. Is it a hassle? Absolutely. Is it inconvenient? Absolutely. I've been in the recycling industry for many, many years. I've been on recycling committees in my hometown of Marlborough, Massachusetts. Recycling is not as good as it is here in Newburyport across the state. Yes, to expand the bottle bill, the sooner the better. Repeal the casino law, we get a second chance to do the right thing. I'm voting yes to repeal the casino law, and yes to earn sick time. The families need it. Thank you.
Yes, no, no, no. Yes, because I think the legislature needs to take the tough vote. Where's the money going to come from? Well, I like the amendment that was proposed in this past budget to any additional revenues that come into the state go towards bridge and road repair and other infrastructure repair. I think that's the smart thing to do. No on the expanded bottle bill, because I just think returning bottles back to a place that's serving beverages and food is absolutely disgusting. As the owner of Cappy's had indicated, you know, there's all kinds of stuff that show up in those bottles, and I think it's just unhealthy. And that's all the more reason to go up to Seabrook. No on the no on the casino bill, because we already have the infrastructure built in Plainville, Massachusetts, and licenses issued. I think the possibility of lawsuits is far greater. And no on the sick time. I'm all for sick time, folks, but I don't like laws proposed by initiative petition. This is a poorly written law, and it needs to be debated by the legislature and then going through committee and passed. Thank you.
Yes, yes, no, and yes. I am, like Mr. Kalkos, I think that the legislature should vote on indexing, the legislature should vote every year if need be. I don't think it should be indexed. If we say indexing to that, we should just have the state budget be indexed every year and not even vote on anything. Yes, in the bottle bill, it's actually been proven that recycling, that redemptions increase recycling, and recycling increases redemption. They work hand in hand. On the casino, I am voting no. Voters have already approved this in Plainville, let alone casinos have been approved in Everett and Springfield. I don't want to tell a voter that, sorry, you can't do it. And sick time, yes, I'm going to protect families who need sick time off.
Next question is for Steve Stanganelli. It comes from Kim Goby.
With an increase in both the use of and deaths from opiates in this district, what are your views on possible or pending legislative action to ensure the safety and health of our residents? And furthermore, what type of legislation would you propose to both educate and prevent, as well as combat this growing epidemic?
Thank you for the question. I do recognize, having lived here for 19 years in Amesbury, that this has become a growing issue. And it cuts across all socioeconomic classes. Regardless of how well educated you are, opiates are becoming a more and more prevalent issue. And I believe that's principally because we have, in this culture, we go to our doctors, we get pills. Those pills create addictions for some people. And sometimes pills sit in your medicine cabinet and don't get thrown out and can be taken by other people. So because of this, I would be recommending more treatment for folks who are addicted. I believe that we should have more training of doctors in pain management so that they do prescribe the right levels of opiate use. And regarding OxyContin, I would have that under very strict control from pain management specialists. That would be the specific piece of legislation that I would offer.
Thank you. Yeah, what Steve said, I know I said that a lot last debate, but Steve has brought up some great points. I know he's not a city councilor, and neither am I, but before I forget, I want to make sure it's really clear that both Steve and I are very intelligent human beings, and we can learn this job, make no mistake about it, folks. And my hats are off to anyone who serves as a city councilor. Yes, they know a lot about the nuts and bolts that Steve and I don't, but I think we're both willing to learn and work hard on that. Pills, yes. I went to my doctor the other day, I had something, he said, well, do you want me to prescribe medication? And I said, no, doc. He knows I'm into yoga, he knows I'm holistic. I said, I'm gonna, work on some yoga, do more yoga, do some holistic stuff. He actually recommended meditation. Now, this is a big problem. It's a great question, but I don't think any of us have a magic bullet. If we did, we'd be sitting in maybe a doctor's office, MIT office. I will find some experts. Ed, I'm looking forward to what Ed says on this. Ed's a lot more of an expert than any of us on this. And I will go to folks like Ed and others to learn what needs to be done. I'll work with anyone to get it done. Thank you.
Well, I tried yoga the other day, and I think I needed some pills after that. So, at any rate, folks, I just want to make one thing clear. I'm looking forward to working with my friend Sheriff Cousins on this issue. Everybody knows somebody in their family who has an addiction, whether it be alcohol, opiate abuse, drug abuse. It's a terrible problem. As a lawyer in this area, folks are shocked and amazed at the amount of folks that I deal with on a regular basis here on the Newburyport District Court who have some serious addictions, who have some serious problems. Right here in Newburyport, we have numerous individuals that, youngsters that are into opiates. So we need to focus in on treatment. And I think that's the solution. These people, we need to embrace them, we need to treat them, we need to get them the help that we need. But we need to be tough on crime, on the dealers. We gotta prevent those folks from coming into our communities and devastating our families' lives. That's how I feel about opiate abuse. Let's go after those dealers, let's get them, let's be tough on them, and let's put them away for good so they can't devastate our families anymore.
Great question. According to several police officers I've spoken to, both in this district and beyond, the reason, and the only reason, we have an opioid problem in this country is because of the decriminalization of hypodermic needles. That's a fact. Second piece is people are not just overdosing on one drug, they're mixing multiple drugs together. They're mixing heroin with oxycodone and others. Additionally, they're mixing drugs with alcohol. So training has to be number one. Number two is every police officer, every firefighter needs to be equipped and trained to carry Narcan, which is proven to combat opioid overdoses. Not every police officer in this district is equipped today. It needs to happen.
Thank you. I think we need to approach this in three ways, some of which have been touched on by the others. In terms of prevention, we need to do a better job of differentiating when we talk about drugs. There are certain drugs that I think are less harmful, are non-addictive, and have less of a criminal impact versus opiates and some of the other drugs that are considered narcotics. As others have said, you don't need to talk to police and fire. You can talk to business owners who talk about the impact of heroin and opiates on their staffs. So I think we need to do a better job starting very young age on the prevention side. In terms of treatment, my good friend Senator Katie Ives was part of sponsoring a bill that passed a few months ago that's going to make treatment a lot more effective. It's going to allow for a residential option, which the state has gotten away from over the years. And in terms of the criminal activity, absolutely we need to be very, very harsh on dealers. I'm for more decriminalizing the actual use of some of these drugs and really being hard on pushers. We also need to look at pharmaceutical companies and get a better drug registry so they don't let people shop around and get their drugs from various pharmaceutical companies.
Our next question comes from Paul Gagliardi, and we directed first to Rama Valiani.
We have had strong representation from Mike Costello in the House of Representatives for many years. What initiatives did you support, of his initiatives, did you support during his tenure? Where do you see yourself differing from him or in alignment with his views?
Great question, thank you. And from what I could follow, Michael Costello seemed to do a great job in bringing a lot of resources and money to this district. One of the things that he was very instrumental in, as well as Senator Ives, was the No More Fukushima and getting the Seabrook facility, working on getting that not licensed. And I totally, totally support that. There are some things I'd like to do different as a state rep. I would like to make patronage illegal. We all followed the probation scandal, right? I want to make it fair for the state reps and state senators. It's not fair to ask them to be a career counselor. I will make patronage illegal so we don't have that slippery slope. And again, I'd be glad to answer this question in further depth. It takes a little bit more than 30, 60 seconds. Thank you.
Well, I'll do my best to sum it up. Mike's a great guy. I like Mike a lot. I have a good friendship with Mike. I think where I'd like to follow in Mike, his footsteps, is quality of life issues that he focused in on, I believe, in this area, and that would be the rail trails. One of the things I'd really like to complete as your next state representative is a connection between Salisbury and Amesbury. That's really important. We've got a wonderful rail trail over here in Newburyport. It's fantastic. My mother, she's got my 2 little boys on it all the time. They love the train, a little metal train up past the bridge. It's fantastic, and it's a great spot. A lot of folks, Jerry Klima has done a phenomenal job of working with a coalition of folks to get that trail system going, and we're very fortunate to have that here in this district. So I'd like to work specifically on that and get that completed.
Like Jim, I think Mike Costello is a great man. I've been friendly with him for several years since I moved here 7 years ago. I've worked with him when I was working for Mayor Moak, and I've worked with him over my past 5 years as a city councilor. You know, I don't want this to be me versus Mike. Again, you're the hiring committee. I'm just looking to be the next job, the next guy in the job. But one of the things I've been most proud of is the way that Mike Costello has been part of a team of individuals, along with Senator Ives and Senator Bedore before her, along with the mayors and town managers, to really improve infrastructure around the Merrimack River. That's what binds us together. And the environment is a key campaign priority of mine. So really, you know, he's worked to help bring the Army Corps of Engineers out to the river and to the ocean for dredging, and I'd like to continue in that stead. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike's a good friend. Mike has endorsed me in this race, as has Senator Katie Ives. I was able to serve with Katie for her 3 terms on the city council. So I've got a good relationship with both of them, and as has been said, we need a seamless transition to our next state representative. We were able to do that when Senator Ives took over from Senator Bedore. In terms of the things that I agree with that Mike represents, number one that comes up for me is gay marriage. 2004 seems like a long time ago, but that was a very courageous vote there. His father, as state senator, was a real leader before anybody was really focusing on that issue. In bringing resources back to the district, today the governor announced for Salisbury Water and Sewer $1.7 million. Mike and Katie have been big parts of bringing that back to us. The Costello Senior Center and Transportation Center in Amesbury absolutely happened, and yeah, he threw his father's name on it, but that's cool. That's a good thing, and that's a great thing for downtown Amesbury. The lower mill yard they've started to put in place, and Plum Island also has really benefited from his attention.
Thank you. I believe that Mike has served us very well the past 12 years. Most recently, how he worked with Katie regarding Seabrook, I would agree exactly with that same thing. Because we have a public safety issue with that plant over the border. And it affects all of us, even though we do not get the power from it. Regarding financial services regulation, he was obviously, as a chair of the Joint Committee of Financial Services, was very, very instrumental in affecting the kind of business that I'm in, and he's been very fair. In fact, As a member of the Financial Planning Association Governance Committee, I've worked with both Mike Costello and Katie Ives on various issues of advocacy, including getting financial literacy in the schools, which is a passionate issue for me. The things that I would focus on differently would be our retirement security issue. I'd like to see us have a thrift savings plan for those residents who don't have access to another plan otherwise. And I would like to see us actually attack the issue regarding long-term care by providing a long-term care insurance pool.
Our next question will come from Dan Ouellette, and we'll start with James Calvin.
Mass Creative recently held a discussion with local representatives of all three communities. Even though all the candidates were invited, only Mr. Herzog and Mr. Cameron participated. The question is this: will you support increased funding from the Massachusetts Cultural Council and the Cultural Facilities Fund?
Absolutely. I think it's really important. I think tourism is important to this district. I think the culture that we have now down on Salisbury Beach, just this past Friday, I went with my wife over to the Blue Ocean Music Hall. I saw probably Nashville's next greatest sensation. This guy, Jamie Kent, was unbelievable. He was fantastic. So I believe that our area has a lot to offer. As a kid growing up in this area, we didn't have much. I mean, the beach is really, I mean, we did have a lot, but it's changed significantly, this area, since when I was a kid growing up. So I would very much support, you know, increased funding for culture, for tourism here. I think tourism is really the key to the success over at Salisbury Beach, furthering the economic development down there, and that great resource that we have available to us. We're very, very lucky to have that here available to us.
Great question. Yes, I did meet with Mass Creative. They are a statewide advocacy organization. They've been around for a couple years now, and they're representing the entire arts and culture and creative movement in the state. Let me ask you all a question. If you look at the entire Massachusetts state budget of you know, some $35 billion, less than 1%, it's actually 2/100th of 1% of the entire state budget is devoted to arts and cultural programs. That's pathetic, and we need to change it, and I will do all I can to increase it. I mean, tourism is just part of the bubble. The Massachusetts Creative Council includes parks as part of their funding mechanism. Parks. If anyone's ever been to a park, well, if you like parks, then you need to increase money to the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and I'll work my hardest to make that happen.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Herzog and myself met with Mass Creative on Friday, I believe it was. It gets a little blurry after a while. And really, the point of that meeting was to talk about arts and culture as an economic driver and as something that has intrinsic worth to all of us. We need to do more in education through our public schools, and that's why I want to focus on Chapter 70 funding and getting that level back to where it needs to be so arts can be a part of our regular education. And it is absolutely a driver for the economy here because tourism comes here in part because of all of our galleries in all three communities. The Mass Cultural Council funding in 1988 was $27 million. It's at $12 million now. It's been decimated over the years. We need to get that back up higher so we can compete with other states because, believe it or not, arts and culture are an economic driver, and we need to do the best that we can.
Thank you. Relative to this particular issue, arts and culture improves the quality of life of all of us. It is what makes the difference between the humdrum life and living a life worth living. To that end, our education system needs to also incorporate music and art as well. We talk a lot about STEM, but we don't have enough resources to have students have access to those things. So again, Chapter 70 foundation budget changes need to be done so we can accommodate that. Relative to our economy, again, quality of life, we are a destination for people, and that is why we need to support the creative arts. And to that end, I would find ways so that we could have artist swaps at low cost so that we can promote that. And part of the way we can do that is to go back to the lottery. The original lottery was meant as an arts and cultural funding program. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm on board 100%, and I apologize for missing that meeting. I did not get the memo. I am totally on board with the Cultural Council. I'd say probably my top three passions in life are music, sports, and politics. And music is right up there. I'm no master musician by any means. But I come from an artistic, creative family, like I said, of 10. Everyone was an artist or a musician. As far as the girls, the boys, we all concentrated on sports. But I have an appreciation for the arts, like it's off the chart. So I will be there every step of the way. Yeah, I listen to NPR. I do all the, the politically correct things when it comes to the arts, but I will fight harder and stronger than anyone when it comes to the arts and funding. And I think it's crucial that we keep the arts, music, languages in the schools as well. Thank you.
So we're back to John McCone for the next question, and Ari will answer first.
Thanks, Pete. Ari, how would you increase Chapter 90 funding to improve and modernize our current transportation infrastructure? And can you provide some specific local examples of what you would like to see improved?
Sure. It's a very loaded question. I don't know if I can answer it in only now 55 seconds. Chapter 90, for those unaware, is a section of the Massachusetts general laws that deals specifically with roadway and sidewalk infrastructure. It's your public works department. Every DPW director in the state receives Chapter 90 money in the form of local aid, and it goes towards street repairs, sidewalk repairs, pothole repairs, trees being cut down, stop signs erected, and everything else that the residents of Newburyport have contacted me about over the past 5 years. What should happen is the DPW directors should receive monetary allotments by March, April, at the beginning of the construction season. What's happening instead is many are receiving it by the summertime, and by that point, the project you wanted done cannot be done. More later.
There's an old expression that goes something along the lines of, everyone wants to go to heaven and nobody wants to die. We all want great transportation, good streets and sidewalks, but nobody wants to pay for it. That's the reason I'm in favor of keeping the indexing on the gas tax. Indexing to inflation is a very small increase each year. Again, the legislature hasn't had the courage to vote on the 3-cent increase for over 20 years. And the only way we're going to fix this is to keep a little bit of money coming in. We index other things. People have probably heard of Social Security. That gets indexed. The Massachusetts income tax is indexed, and that's gone down a couple of percentage points over the last couple of years. So we need to find the revenue, and the gas tax is one way to do it. And I think most specifically, as Councilor Herzog said, yeah, we want to get the money earlier to cities and towns so they can do that street and sidewalk work early. But that amount needs to be increased from $200 million, which is where it's been stuck at for the last couple of years, to $300 million. That money is the only way that cities and towns can deal with streets, because nobody's got the money in their own municipal budgets.
The way I understand the question, the way I've read the issue, is that even though we have not done anything over the last 20-odd years in terms of increasing that gas tax, we have now. That 3-cent per gallon tax increase is in place in January. So what I would be in favor of, and I do understand, if you're running a business, you want to have some idea of what to expect. So Department of Transportation, local DPWs need to know what to budget for. So to do that effectively, I would propose change to the formula that would allow us to have gas indexing for 4 years and allow the state legislature to vote on it at the end of that 4th year. Why? Because we do the same exact thing with collective bargaining. Yes, we do have indexing for other things like Social Security, but this is a tax issue and we need to be on the record, and that's how we can do it without having it into perpetuity. Also, I would change the formula so we would actually allow it for cities and towns to have it on a reimbursement basis, as opposed to waiting for the governor to release the funds. That would be a significant change so we can get money rolling at the beginning of the construction season.
Thank you. I also echo what Ari and Ed and Steve have said exactly, and the indexing is key here. Where's the money going to come from? The indexing is one form of revenue. Also, there's savings to be had. I think the question also entailed, what are we going to do to fix our roads and bridges or something to that effect? It's been business as usual, especially in this state and in Newburyport. Does anyone, savings, where can we save money? I'll be looking at exactly where we can save money. I'll be frugal, but I'll give some examples. The roundabout down near the Chain Bridge. How many redos does that have? How many redos did that get? 2, 3, who was watching that? Was it the state, was it the city? Okay, there's a lot of areas we can save a lot of money. There's an article in the paper yesterday about $200,000 coming from the state to get the fountain going on In Street. That's not our money, right? So we don't have to worry about it. It's the state money. Well, it is our money, folks. There's a lot of examples, more and more of these I'd be glad to share with you. Okay? It'll make your head spin. Thank you.
So I think Chapter 90 has been funded the most it's been funded in years, and the legislature's provided us that. And as your next state representative, what I would do is I would lobby for the release of those funds to come back to Newburyport, Salisbury, and Amesbury. Excess revenues is the way in which we can find more funds. That proposal that I agree wholeheartedly with, rather than indexing. Look, the federal gas tax is 18 cents per gallon. We've got about 24 cents per gallon, up from 21 cents this year. I think we need to take the tough vote. If we need the money, that's what we're elected to do. We're elected to take votes. We're not elected to not take votes and just pass a measure once and therefore never have to deal with it again. And I think that's why we now have that question on the ballot. But revenues are there. Let's instead, it's like with the sidewalk issues and the meals tax. I mean, those monies were set aside for going towards sidewalks. They never ended up with the sidewalks. They just go to the general fund. That's just one example of passing a tax that never goes where it's designated towards going. So that's my thoughts.
Next question comes from Kim Goby, and first answer will come from Ed Cameron.
There is general agreement about the need to increase our tax base through economic development. How would you propose to do this while maintaining the unique character of each of our 3 communities?
Thank you, Kim, for the question. Each community is different in terms of its industrial base, its reliance on tourism, and other types of business activities. And I think it's really relying on each local community to make those decisions in terms of their zoning. I know in Newburyport, currently I'm the chair of the city's Planning and Development Committee. We're looking at rezoning, in particular looking at the industrial park and making that more of a business park. Right now, you'd be very hard-pressed to be able to put certain types of businesses in there that are actually very compatible for that area, and that's a problem. We're going to try to rectify that through zoning. I think what you do for economic development is really following the footsteps of what Mike Costello did and what Katie Ives is still doing. That's helping those local projects. The big one in Salisbury is really Salisbury Beach revitalization, making sure that the erosion is controlled to the greatest extent that we can do that, and really helping that downtown beach area become as strong as it can. That's going to benefit all of Salisbury. In Amesbury, it's really the lower mill yard right now, following in the footsteps of some other great projects that Amesbury's been able to do with the state helping with the infrastructure. So really working with local communities, having that partnership is the way to go.
While every community has its own vision of what it wants to do, I think that ultimately we all benefit by having regional planning. And that would be one of the key focuses of what I would be offering, is working with the state agencies, the chambers of commerce, the commercial real estate community, to find ways that we can work together to attract more businesses of compatible use in all of the areas. I have offered in my websites information about business incubator spaces. And this is one way we can help businesses develop, and the more we can expand and grow the pie, the more tax revenue that we can also have benefit of. So business incubator space in the vacant spaces that are in all of our communities, so that we can focus on micro businesses, IT, high-tech type businesses, and special manufacturing. That's where we can also find a place for those people who are not going to college but need a job through vocational training, because we would have those vocational training jobs locally in those incubator spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll work with the vocational technical high schools and the two-year colleges, and I'll make those available for people of all ages. Career workforce training is key, especially in the green technologies, which I am in, the solar field. But there's so many burgeoning opportunities in the renewable fields that are coming, and we have to support the renewable energy credits more and more and more. We've got a dent. Just a quick little figure here. I grabbed my utility thing. As far as the percent of energy that comes from wind, 4.2%. Solar, 0.3%. Other renewables, 3%. It's a lot of potential, folks. And educating people and getting them ready for this field. Also biotech, nanotech, and the life sciences. It's a lot of potential. And also growing Amesbury's commercial industrial base and working with the Amesbury City Councilors and Ken Gray to see what we can do to get that going. I know Jim's working on that already.
Thanks. Well, I'll let you move over to Amesbury and run for city council when your next state rep. Just kidding. No. So I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to streamline the process. I have a client in Salisbury that's been waiting 4 years for a DE permit. We've had an amended license before the DEP request. Everything's been gone through. We've jumped through all the hoops, Concom, Planning Board, everything that we needed to go through. And it's 4 years, and we still haven't got that amended permit. So we need to streamline the process. So as the next state representative, that's what I would like to work on. I think what we also need to do is we need to remove barriers to entry, barriers such as permitting holdups. I know that there are other state representatives out there and legislators out there that have connections overseas and businesses that would like to come here from England, Japan, China. I'd like to attract those businesses to Massachusetts. And I'd also like to keep the businesses here that we already have. What I don't want to do is I don't want to increase the costs and burden the businesses and drive jobs up north or down to North Carolina and other places other than Massachusetts.
We already have in state government a gentleman by the name of Peter Milano. He's employed by the Massachusetts Office of Business Development, and his job is specifically to recruit businesses from out of the country and from across the country to come into this district. Ed mentioned a couple minutes ago about the MassWorks program, which brought money into Salisbury. That's specifically through Peter Milano's group. Secondly, there is a state expedited permitting law. It's just up to communities to adopt it. But to answer your question, what will I do to increase the tax base for economic development? To me, it's very, very simple. We need to establish the greater Amesbury region as a gateway city. Look up gateway cities. We don't have the population for it, but we meet every other qualification. The state recently gave money to this transformative development funding. Steve mentioned business incubators. We already have that. We have the Chestnut Innovation Center in Amesbury. We have Workspace 36 in Amesbury. But they can't get money from the state because we're not a gateway city. I want to make it happen.
Our next question will come from Paul, and it will be addressed first to Steve.
Chapter 770 funding is a concern for all of the communities in the district. Do you believe the formula is fair? And if not, what would you do to change it? Also, in the last budget season, the House voted on party lines to bar discussion of Chapter 70 local aid from the budget discussions. If elected, would you support banning local aid discussions during budget hearings?
Chapter 70 education funding formula is broken. There's no way around that. It is not fair. It was created so long ago with the initial education reform back in 1993, at the time when we didn't have, as part of the expenses, some of the things that are impacting cities and towns, specifically like Amesbury. One of those key issues is special education funding and transportation. Those are not part of the education formula. That needs to change. And the way we change that formula is, instead of the current process, we adopt a permanent funding solution for cities and towns. The Massachusetts Municipal Association has proposed this. I would advocate for that on Beacon Hill. because we need a permanent solution. The way they do that is we have a set number, 40 or 45% of state income tax revenues being allotted to the cities and towns. So you then can figure out exactly what you're starting with, instead of what we do right now. Thank you.
Yes, it needs to be fixed. As you said, Steve, it was done in 1993. That was the first year my brother Dan Valianti started serving as a state rep in our hometown of Marlborough, Massachusetts. And I asked him about this the other day, and I've done a little bit of research on it. It's staggering, the complication of that, but I will work with former reps, former senators, current reps, current senators, and educational specialists to get it right. We need to get it right, and I'll work on getting it right, absolutely. There's no magic bullet. No one's going to come up with a magic answer for you folks. Sorry, but it does have to be fixed. I'll work on it.
I'll take a stab first at getting Chapter 70 revised by, although a complicated formula, I think the special education that's not factored into the equation, that needs to be addressed right away. $500,000 was cut from the Amesbury budget for the IEP transportation for 39 students back in 2004. That money needs to come back to Amesbury and other communities, Newburyport and Salisbury. Salisbury is not getting its full reimbursement for the transportation costs that it was incentivized to do back in the 1970s as part of regionalization. We also need to fully fund Circuit Breaker. Circuit Breaker is 75% of every dollar over foundation, which is 4 times foundation, which is $40,000. Approximately, I would say we're probably at about 68% right now of that, and that needs to be fully funded. So, you know, if somebody comes into my office and says, look, I mean, here's a contract, and the contract wasn't upheld, then you get a breach of contract. I want to make the state uphold its end of the bargain by fully funding these items that it's obligated to fund.
I'm not a good numbers person, so I want to read you something I found here. The fiscal 2015 budget is $36.5 billion. Of that, $155 million is for kindergarten through 12th grade education, which is 2.7% above last year, but $74 million below fiscal 2009. We have a long way to go to really bring us back to how we were just a couple years ago. Additionally, what's pathetic to me, and I'm out of the city council, we approve the budget every year. I have never seen a line item in the school budget for the River Valley Charter School, and yet, in the most recent budget that the City Council approved, unbeknownst to me, $1.3 million of the school department budget went to the charter school. We need to fix it on the state level. We cannot have charter school funding be going into local aid. We cannot have charter school funding going into Chapter 70. It needs to be separately funded.
Thank you. So the problem that we're seeing, obviously, every year, each school district's budget and whether it's town meeting or city council is arguing over the funding amount. We're not able to get it to where we need to be. Special ed has been a big part of that. We need to fund the circuit breaker at least 100% or find other mechanisms to get the money there or control costs while we retain good services for kids that have those needs. Transportation's another big issue that we have not been getting reimbursed on. Councilor Herzog touched on charter schools, and I think there can be a false argument between charters and the public schools. I'm supportive of charter schools, but I do not favor expanding the cap. Right now, one of our daughters goes to the River Valley Charter School, another one goes to the New Bresnahan. I think at the state level, there's a false argument between those. I think we need to hold flat right now on the charters, fix Chapter 70. We've definitely made progress. There's commission meetings that'll be happening this year. Senator Ives has also led a local group looking at special ed. And really, it's going to be about picking somebody to be your state representative who's going to be in there fighting for you. And as a Democrat, I hate to say it, I'm going to be the one that's most likely to be at that table, because Republicans, you're going to be low man on the totem pole, and if you're unenrolled or independent, you're not even going to be on the totem pole.
Next question comes from Dan, and it will be addressed first to Rama.
Thank you, Pete. One of the largest and ongoing problems we have at the beach is erosion. The Salisbury State Reservation is one of the most profitable, if not the most profitable, park in the state. What will you do to ensure that beach replenishment is at the top of DCR's list, not only immediately after a storm, but also as an ongoing preventative measure? What other needs do you see as specific to advocate for in our coastal region?
Thank you, Dan. Yes, I'll make sure that we look at the bigger picture. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, gentlemen here, I'm the only one that's been attending the storm surge meetings. Show of hands who's familiar with the storm surge coastal erosion group. I highly recommend all of us, my comrades and colleagues here, to attend. Whether we're elected or not, the next meeting is October 29th. I've learned a lot. I'm no expert at all, but I've learned a lot about these issues. What'll I do? Well, look at the bigger picture, Dan. It's not the next 3 years, it's not the next 2 years, it's not the next 5 years. Sorry, folks. It's the next 20, 30, 50 years we gotta be concerned about. Should we be building without certain codes in the floodplain of Salisbury? I don't know. I'm not a structural engineer. It doesn't take a rocket science to ask that question. Did someone ask that question? All of that development as you're driving down towards the beach on the left. I know they have the concrete parking on the bottom, so they've taken a look at it, but I will look at the bigger, greater picture, and I will do what's best for the district and for everyone involved. Who's next?
Just quickly, in regards to that last question, Paul, I will advocate for open discussion in regards to local aid in the State House. And in regards to Salisbury Beach, I'm all for Salisbury Beach. Salisbury Beach is a great place. As I indicated earlier, it's dependent upon tourism, and we really need to focus in on the tourism down in that area. Having grown up on the water, spent my entire life in the Merrimack River as a kid through my teen years, and just really developed a fondness for boating and the area in which we live. I realize how important Salisbury Beach really is to this community. I also realize how important Plum Island is to the community too, so we really need to work on, we're going to need somebody in there who's aware of these issues, who's familiar with the waterways, who has a great deal of experience and background legally with respect to them, and who can help us make sure that we get the sand out on that beach, who also can help in getting the comfort station, by the way, folks, where it belongs, where the locals know it belongs, right there, and also to really develop it so we can get a heck of a boardwalk just like Hampton Beach right along Salisbury Beach.
Thank you. Another great question. These are great questions, guys. I don't know who came up with them, whether it's the people, and just great questions. Look, I am aware of the storm surge meeting that have been going on. I've just been busy campaigning to be your next state representative. We have a number of groups, a number of entities that already exist. One of the groups that's putting on the storm surge series is the Merrimack Valley Coastal Adaptation Group. It comprises Newburyport and a bunch of other communities. I want to empower them. I also want to empower the Merrimack River Watershed Council. I want to empower them to work together. I want to empower them to also work with the State Office of Coastal Zone Management and the new Lieutenant Governor's Office and the Department of Environmental Protection and the Army Corps of Engineers and our congressional delegation, whoever they might be. Everyone needs to work together with the two mayors and the town manager. Only by working together can anything happen. Thank you.
Thank you. The question was about Salisbury Beach, but I'll also include Plum Island as well. Councilor Allison Hartquist, who represents Plum Island, is out here in the audience. And, you know, we've learned on the Newburyport City Council a lot about this in the last several years. We've lost a great advocate, whatever you thought about Congressman Tierney. He was very instrumental in helping with dredging, getting the jetties repaired. That's important both for the north side, on Salisbury's side, and for the Newburyport and Newbury side as well. We need to continue those efforts at the federal level with whoever our next congressman will be. And in terms of our relationship with DCR, we need to do a lot better. If you talk to Maria Miles from the Salisbury Chamber, she will tell you how incredible the service is in Hampton Beach because the state of New Hampshire gets right on it after a storm and we don't. We need to do a better job in there. We need somebody who's going to be a real advocate with those state agencies and also be able to get the funding out of the budget so we can preserve those areas so we don't find out that Newburyport and the river is our beachfront. We need to keep those barrier islands strong, both on the Newburyport and Salisbury side.
Thank you. What we're seeing essentially is climate change's impact on us locally. Now, we can do certain things for ourselves locally, but not everything. Alternative energy is certainly one option we can talk about at some point. Together, everyone achieves more. That motto says it all about what we can do, working with DCR, working with the Army Corps of Engineers, to make sure that they have a plan in place to come in after a storm immediately. One proposal that I have also recommended on my website, teamstevestang.com, is that we should have flood insurance available to everyone. We can adjust the insurance, homeowners insurance program so that everyone has access to some level of flood insurance. And by using those premiums, we can direct it to the places that need it and use some of those funds in a lockbox with this kind of issue for funding this kind of beach renourishment. And there is also an initiative regarding voluntary buyback of coastal properties. We can work with communities, work with homeowners, because continuing to build in vulnerable areas ultimately costs us all.
We're back to John McComb for the next question, and first answer will come from James Kelvin.
Okay, thanks, Pete. The State House is the only legislative board in the Commonwealth that does not have to comply with the open meeting laws. If elected, would you support a bill requiring the State House, including the House itself, House of Representatives, to have all meetings open to the public?
Absolutely. I think that it's government of the people, by the people, and therefore it should be open to all of the people. So I support that, and as your next state representative, I'll be sure, as I have been on the Amesbury City Council for the past 3 terms, very open and honest and very accessible to all of the constituents of this district. Whether Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter to me, folks. I want to be the best representative that you deserve in the State House for Newburyport, Salisbury, and Amesbury. So I will support the openness of the State House and the openness of the legislative process, and my door will be open all the time.
In answer to the question, yes. And this is a prime example of how the current political party system fails. The Republicans always vote yes on these initiatives. The Democrats always vote no on these initiatives. Why did that happen? I don't know. But the voting record speaks for itself. Every Republican always votes yes for transparency. Every Democrat always votes no for transparency. Me, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. But as every person in Newburyport knows, I've been on the City Council for 5 years now, I always share information when I get it. And I will continue to share information whenever I get it. Not just releasing content from the House, but releasing my own content. Whenever I get any document about anything, I will share it, and you'll be the first people to hear about it.
I will be a Democrat who will push for strong reforms around transparency. As the question indicated, at the local level, since many of us in the room are on city councils, we can't meet if there is a 3-member committee. 2 of those members can't meet and discuss a certain issue because it would be a violation of open meeting law. We need to find ways to make that happen at the state level so that nothing's happening behind closed doors, so we don't get scandals like the probation scandal. Everything's out in the open, votes are recorded, they're made public, and I will absolutely be pushing for that as a Democrat.
On my website, I have said this from the very beginning, that we need government accountability. Open meeting laws just make common sense. For me to be a common sense candidate and say I would be opposed to that would just not make common sense. I have said publicly that I am in favor of the Rule 28 Coalition's initiatives, one of which is, regarding open meeting laws, one of which is that we should not require a supermajority on legislation to be passed. We have seen the kind of stalemate that has occurred in Washington, D.C. because of this kind of supermajority voting. That thwarts the will of the people. So I bring that up as also part of this whole government accountability issue. I also am in a business that is highly regulated. As a financial planner, our records need to be retained. Our email records need to be retained. So we have enough technology available that we can also retain our email for all committee meetings, for all committee members. We have seen the kind of scandals that have happened when previous governor administrations can't seem to find their email records.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah. Yes, 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 we need the open meeting law. As I'm calling for, if you check my website, voteforrama.com, the number 4, voteforrama.com, and as I talked about from the beginning here, is rooting out corruption, patronage, and real reform, okay? Ari, I think, said it best. And I think, with all due respect to Ed, I think the independents that will hopefully be in there, one of us, possibly, as an independent, they won't know which way we'll necessarily vote, so someone might actually be interested in our vote. Quick little story, speaking about the Democrats going along, the Republicans going along on one side, the casinos, DeMacy was for them, got everyone, just about everyone, if I'm not mistaken, to vote for the casinos. DeLeo came in, this was before the referendum, DeLeo came in and said everyone, DeMacy against the casinos, DeLeo for the casinos. All the Democrats flip-flopped and went for the casinos with DeLeo. That's the type of thing that I'll be working on at the State House. Thank you.
We're back to Kim, and Kim's going to address this question first to Ari Herzog.
I have a small business question for you gentlemen tonight. A good number of businesses in our 3 communities are made up of 10 employees or less. How would you propose to help this group and their unique needs, such as funding, insurance, and legal advice?
Sure. Well, one of the first things I would do is there's a recently founded organization based in Amesbury called the Brick Center. Newburyport resident by the name of Erica Holthausen, who's the founder of it. And what I would do is I would empower the Brick Center, perhaps give them some state funding. What the Brick Center is all about is the micro business, Kim. Not just the business with 10 or less employees, but the business with 5 or less employees. The micro business represents 92% of every business, not just in the Commonwealth, but across the country. The typical business on Main Street, the typical business on State Street, the typical business downtown, that is the micro business. And I will do everything in my power to give them as much help as they need, because they are the lifeblood of our district.
I think here in Massachusetts we need to do a better job of promoting small businesses. And actually the thing that I think applies to businesses of all type that I want to talk about is a bit radical for some people, and that's really around health insurance. Kim, you'd asked about insurance as one of those things. And I think it is absolutely ridiculous that businesses for their employees are the ones that have to shell out the money for health insurance. I think we need a serious conversation in this state, which is happening right now in Vermont, about single-payer health insurance. Get the businesses out of funding that so they can do what they do best, which is grow and bring in new customers and make money, and let's find another mechanism to deal with health insurance. We've got a lot to do around unemployment insurance, workers' comps. There can be reforms there as well. And for small businesses, I would really want to try to strengthen small business assistance centers. There's one where I work at in Lowell that covers the Merrimack Valley. They've been very successful in helping food trucks and a whole bunch of other folks that want to be entrepreneurial. I think we can help artists become entrepreneurial, and that's really a way for people to get extra money in their pockets.
Thank you. I have been saying this on my website again. Being a business owner myself, knowing how hard it is to bootstrap a business from the very beginning. The first 5 years are the most critical. More failures occur because the cash flow isn't there. The training isn't there. We need to help support these people who are trying to start a business and maintain a business. To that end, I have talked about public-private partnerships in the form of incubator spaces, for instance, where you bring in experts to help promote and train these entrepreneurs. Case in point, Merrimack Valley Sandbox, working out of the Everett Mills in Lawrence, does this, where you have access to bankers, insurance folks, consultants who will help you. I would also waive startup costs because the vital cash flow during the beginning part of your business is critical. So I have talked about waiving startup costs relative to LLC fees, relative to registration fees, or annual corporate fees. And I would offer a tax credit for businesses putting together a retirement plan for themselves or their employees, and a consolidated website offering these resources so that we have a one-stop shop. It's so difficult to start a business because you don't know where everything is.
Amen. Yep. One-stop shop on resources, getting people connected. I will help people network. That's probably one of my biggest strengths is networking. I did own a small business. It entailed a retail store as well. It was a holistic health center in Belmont, Mass. And for 5 years, I had that going. I was the head chef, cook, bottle washer. There's a lot of things that can be changed. I will work my tail off to see what can be changed at the state level as far as reducing startup costs, as far as reducing licenses, as far as expediting the permit process. Also, we need to fund research and development for our burgeoning industries, such as the renewables. We don't even know what some of these renewables are. Okay, we need to work with private partnerships like MIT, like the Enterprise Center in Salem, Massachusetts, like a lot of others that the folks here have mentioned, a lot of others that are coming on board, and maybe getting a regional one here in the Merrimack Valley. Thanks.
Well, first of all, I think in order to understand business, you have to first be a business owner. And having been 7 years now, going on 8, as a solo practitioner, prior to that, in a small family business, you know, I've got a great deal of experience with business and the cost of doing business here in the Commonwealth. I think the first thing you can do to help is to get government out of the way. I mean, it's the example that I talked about earlier with the client and the permitting process issue. With the DEP. I mean, it just shouldn't take that long. Thinking about what that, so if that individual were to convey that business today, and they had, and that would come up in the title report, that they had to resolve that outstanding license issue, that could cost mountains of money, take lots and lots of time, and just really crush a small business. So I think here in the state of Massachusetts, we have to do things like, you know, in order to attract new business, like the TIF. We did over on Amesbury, tax incremental financing. I think that was wonderful. Defer the taxes on buildings, you know, and infrastructure so businesses can come in and start up and provide some jobs for the constituents of the community.
We're back around to Paul with a question first answered by Ed Campbell.
Ed, is Jim just mentioned, Amesbury recently implemented the tax increment financing program, commonly known as the TIF program, which is considered a great way to attract qualifying businesses to communities, especially the border communities, such as those in our district. What is your understanding of how the TIF program works? And secondly, are there other programs that you would propose to help attract businesses into our district?
Thank you for the question, Paul. TIF is really, it's a tool among other tools that localities have, and there's also state incentives that are important as well. TIF has not been used in Newburyport in a while, so I'm not as familiar with the details as somebody on the Amesbury City Council may be. The problem with TIF is sometimes you can get into a bit of a bidding war between localities, and that undermines the property taxes that are coming in through those new businesses. That puts more of a burden on local residential property taxpayers. So there is a bit of a downside with that. What I'm interested in mostly is really making sure we have a strong educational base here. I think that doesn't require a special government program. That's government doing the basics. So both at the local and state level, making sure we have incredibly strong schools, vocational schools as well, community colleges, so we have good employees, because I think that's what businesses look for that workforce. I think we have an enormous amount we can do and a lot of opportunity around transportation. We're at a hub between Boston, between Portland and Portsmouth, between 95, 495. We've got commuter rail and bus transportation that can really send us north and south. We could do better going up the Merrimack Valley. So I think those are the ways we can make a stronger business climate here in these towns.
The goal of TIF is basically to provide real estate tax exemptions for those people who are developing properties in your town. Well, that's great. Part of the problem with that is, how do you figure out what that future value of incremental tax-based revenue will be? It's subject to manipulation. We have had a long history in this state of doing things to favor one type of business over another type of business, providing incentives to them, and those businesses, after taking that money, after a few years, leaves. So that would be a concern for me about expanding this TIF program in other areas. I think it'll work right now as projected, but there are concerns I have. I think the key real issue is less focus on a regressive property tax. And we do that by changing the state aid formula. Again, I'll go back to the proposal by the Massachusetts Municipal Association. We need to focus on that in order to have a more educated workforce, because our only real resource that we offer to people is our educated workforce.
Thank you, Steve. We have to invest in our infrastructure, our roads and bridges. There's tons of jobs to be had there. Yes, we are at a good confluence of the Route 95, Route 495. We're in a great spot, right on the New Hampshire border. A lot of people want to come here. We have to celebrate our local businesses. We have to collaborate with the different partnerships and, like I said earlier, bring research and development money for the burgeoning industries. Newburyport is a very green community, and it's got a little bit of a reputation for that. Let's expand on that, and let's piggyback with Amesbury and with Salisbury and bring that. I know, like I said earlier, I know the mayor and the city council over Amesbury is trying to attract a lot of business, and I know Salisbury is working on the expansion, so there's a lot of potential, a lot of things we can do, and I'll research to see what kind of incentives we can bring, and I will support businesses as best I can. Thank you.
I'm really proud to say that I was endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Business. It's a really prestigious organization. It supports over 1 million employees in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts alone. And I think I received that endorsement because of my experience in business and my innovative ways in which to attract new business to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I think TIF is a great example of that. Folks, we need new business here. And the reason why we need new business is it helps our schools. They're property taxpayers too. And they're also personal property taxpayers, so they pay on property, plant, and equipment. That type of tax base is good because it's not putting children in the schools, therefore it's not costing the community money for educating a child, which is not a bad thing. They come in at a low cost, and they're also providing jobs. And they're also providing low commute for the people of the town, so we're not wear and tear on the infrastructure and sending families into Boston and other faraway places. That's good for the community.
Jim just said we need to grow businesses. I agree 100%. What Jim failed to say is how he's going to do that. Let me provide you an example. Did you know that here in Essex County, we have a lot of nonprofit organizations? Some of you might even work for them. Nonprofit organizations, 501c organizations. Did you know there are more 501c organizations in Essex County than the rest of the country? We need to work with these nonprofit organizations. We need to empower them. We need the state to work with them. We got a question earlier tonight about the arts and cultural programs, about increasing money to the Massachusetts Cultural Council and all the individual cultural councils. We need to work with cultural councils. We need to work with chambers of commerce. We need to work with groups like the Brick Center. We need to work with everyone. Let's look at TIF. Let's look at DIF, DIF, that's District Improvement Financing, and let's look at expedited permitting. And let's put it all together in one big caboodle.
Well, we've got to the end of our questions from the panel. I just want to check with the timekeepers.
We have 6 minutes.
Okay, so we're going to move into the closing remarks? Of the questions. Okay. Each candidate, as we mentioned at the beginning, can ask another candidate a question, and that answer not to exceed a minute. This is where the rebuttal comes in of no more than 30 seconds if needed. And we'll start with Ed Cameron again to ask a question of one of the other candidates.
Thank you. I have a question for Councillor Kalkhorst. Councillor, would you have voted on the comprehensive firearms legislation that passed the legislature in July of this year?
The answer to that question is I support House Bill 4376 that was signed into law by the Governor of Massachusetts back on August 13th of 2014 this year.
Could you elucidate why?
I said I support House Bill 4376.
Even though the National Rifle Association, which has endorsed you, opposed that bill?
I didn't know this was the format of the debate, but once again, I'll reiterate my answer to that question. I support 4376 that was signed into law by Governor Deval Patrick on August 13th, 2014. And I actually think it was supported by the Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts and had its support and Jim Wallace's support, the executive director of the same organization.
Steve?
My question is to Ed. Ed, if you had the opportunity to be the next representative and you need to file a bill, beginning, what 3 bills or priorities would you be focusing on as part of your first year?
Thank you. Great question. I think the first thing would be around transparency. As we talked about earlier, I think something that is more like the local open meeting law for state officials, that would be something I would want to work on immediately. I would want to work on homelessness. That's something I've been devoting my career to for 27 years. I think I have a lot to add to that conversation. I have, as somebody who's worked in that field. Right now, the state is spending almost $500 million on sheltering families and individuals, transporting them often falls to localities, so that would be something I'd be looking to file legislation on. And also just to really improve and focus on beach erosion. That's something where there's a lot of different state agencies working on better regionalization for particular areas. There are places that have more seawalls and places like our communities that have more barrier islands. And I want to just make sure that we're focusing on that as part of an overall climate change agenda.
So there is an opportunity with Representative Kaufman, who has a bill outstanding which is labeled an Act for Healthy Families and Businesses to help get toxic chemicals out of the consumer goods that we use in this state, because as a parent, we're obviously concerned about how we do things and want to make sure that we live in a very safe environment. I have already come out in favor of that. That would be one of my top priorities. Could you be on board with that?
Okay, no, I'm sorry, we gotta move on to Ron.
Thank you. My question is for Jim. Jim, as a city councilor in Amesbury, what have you folks and Ken Gray been doing specifically to attract a commercial industrial base, and how's that progress going as far as you see it, as far as your experience?
Thank you, and I think that progress is going really good, and as just discussed earlier with the TIF financing, tax incremental financing, I think that's just one step closer to attracting new business into Amesbury. Look, I think Amesbury's percentage is about under 15% of the commercial industrial base. It's heavily reliant upon property taxpayers to pay the entire bill. That is not a good thing. I think we need to get new businesses in. We've got some empty space over in the industrial parks that we have over in Amesbury. Love to see new business growth over there. Love to work with our wonderful executive director, Melissa Sarasulo, who's in the front row this evening, to get some more businesses and drum up some more support for the community of Amesbury. It's a community that I grew up in, a community that I love, and that I'd like to see flourish business-wise.
Thank you. Thanks for working on that. I'd love to see it flourish as well, and I'll bring some of my mortgage banking experience to that and my environmental experience to bring as much new development as possible to Amesbury. I know there's a lot of commercial space that is available, and as going door to door and talking to folks in Amesbury, as it's no surprise, the big issue is the taxes. And Ken Gray has made it perfectly clear from the beginning, part of his campaign and now part of his mayoral position, to expand the commercial industrial base, and I'll do everything in my power to work on that, and I think I have some skills to bring to that. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, James, to ask a question on one of the other candidates.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors this evening and let everybody know that I think that all the questions have been answered, and therefore I don't have any question. I just want to wish all my competition the very best of luck.
Okay, and to Ari.
Well, I do have a question, and I'll ask that question to Jim, who didn't have a question to ask. Perhaps you can answer one. Jim, as you know, as you may know, I'm a pretty much a technology geek, and I belong to a group called the North Shore Web Geeks, for instance. And, people go to websites to find information. I know I went to mass.gov many times over the past 7 months to find information. I'm guessing you went to mass.gov too. So you probably wouldn't be surprised if the Sunlight Foundation graded mass.gov with a letter grade of F. I'm curious if you'd be able to share what's wrong with the state website today and what specifically would you fix?
Well, I don't think anything is perfect. With respect to mass.gov, I actually find it very user-friendly, but I'm not as technologically advanced as you are, that's for certain. But, I don't find any problem with it whatsoever personally, but again, I would leave that to individuals such as yourself who have a really depth and great knowledge with respect to websites and so forth to maybe assist your next state rep, me, with that issue.
30-second rebuttal. I find that interesting. The Sunlight Foundation graded mass.gov with an F for multiple reasons, Jim, including the lack of timely content, the lack of legislative votes. You alluded to that gun legislation recently. I know the Gun Owners Action League did support it. However, I've looked for a list of which senators and representatives actually voted for it. Can't find any information on mass.gov. Can't find it on the state legislature website either. And actually, they did say that it's not user-friendly.
Okay, we'll have Ari hold on to that microphone, actually, because it's time for our candidates' closing remarks. Each will have 90 seconds for that. We'll do it in the reverse order of the opening remarks. Ari, you're first.
Great, thanks. I'll actually stand up if I can stretch my legs for 90 seconds. First off, to WNBP, the Daily News, the three Chambers of Commerce, thanks for hosting us, and to the middle school for truly hosting us tonight. I wrote out a list of 5 things I'd like to do if elected on the first 5 days of my office. If you elect me on November 4th, these are the 5 things I'd like to do. First, on my first day, I'd like to convene a tax code working group. If Steve Stanganelli is not elected, I'd like him to be on that working group. This would be a working group of tax professionals, financial professionals, to look at investigating the entire tax code. That includes the property tax, that includes the estate tax, that includes the cigarette tax, you name it. Let's look at it all, corporate taxes, loopholes, I want to see it all. And I'm talking about a district working group, not a statewide group. Second day, I'm going to focus on education, Chapter 70 of the Foundation Budget Review Commission. In particular, I'm going to call upon Jay Iannini and Dave Harask to talk to me about the Coalition on Chapter 70 reform. We had a useful meeting a couple weeks ago in Ipswich, and I'd like to give them more power. Third day, we're going to talk about the carbon tax. That's not really a tax, it's actually a way of decreasing your payroll tax or decreasing your personal income tax, but forcing utilities to pay more money for fossil fuel production. On my 4th day, I'm going to talk about gateway cities, which I alluded to earlier. And on my 5th day, I'm going to talk about broadband. How can we compete with the duopoly of Comcast and Verizon so your cable bills go down? My name is Ari Herzog, and I ask for your vote on November 4th to be your representative in the General Court. Thank you.
If how hard I've worked throughout this campaign is any indication of how I'll serve as your next state representative, I assure you that this district is going to be well represented in the State House. I will work extremely hard from day one, and that means that Wednesday following Election Day to get more money back for important programs for our schools, like local aid, and for our district, for those seniors living in our district who are afraid that, you know what, they may not have enough money to get by today, this week, next month. These are the important issues that I want to work on as your next state representative. Business development, all the things that we've talked about this evening, creating new jobs throughout the district. I will be, next to our chambers, your biggest cheerleader for new development and economic growth in this district. I will make sure that employers are welcome, that they're not shoot across the border over to Seabrook, where development, of course, is going like, gangbusters over there. Folks, we need to create new jobs, we need to create better schools, and we need to provide a future for our children, and that means you need somebody in the State House who's going to work extremely hard for you. And so I look forward to your help, your support, and of course your vote this coming November 4th to be your next state rep. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Number one priority will be setting up a citizen savings task force, hopefully a volunteer task force, how we can make government more efficient, how we can save money. Folks like you calling in a toll-free number or calling your rep, your state senator, where can we be saving money? Where can we be doing it differently? Do we need all those 3 redos on the roundabout? Do we need the state to pay for a clam bake? $35,000 this summer. It wasn't our money, it wasn't Newburyport's money. It's great to celebrate our 250th. That was a state grant, $35,000. That's why we have wonderful, wonderful institutions here. I know we rely on our banks and our other institutions quite a bit, but for a clam bake, that should be done by private funds. That's the type of thing I'll work on. Transparency. Do you folks know the first year of the state rep's term, we work basically through December, right? The second year of the term, guess when the term ends? Does anyone want to guess? Yell it out. July 31st. Do they get paid less in the second year? The official term ends July 31st, folks. All sessions are done unless emergencies called. So the rep is free and senator is free to campaign and fundraise. Okay, no official business. I will propose to extend that to the same time as the first year, or for our rep to take a reduced salary of $45,000 instead of $65,000. The salary that we're all applying for this job is $65,000, folks, by the way. Most of us can live quite comfortably on that. I certainly can. I'd love to have you vote November 4th, Rama Valianti. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you're fed up with finger pointing and politics as usual, I ask you for your vote. I bring an independent, nonpartisan voice and an open mind to this race. Let's move beyond politics and labels to find effective solutions that work. What's the definition of insanity, I ask you? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We don't have to do the same thing the same way. You don't have to choose a party. And who better to do that than someone who is not burdened by politics as usual? I'm offering practical, common sense solutions to make taxes more fair and to fund our common priorities such as education, infrastructure, and economic development. My goal is to help us live more affordably. And for that end, my legislative priorities, I've outlined a few here, include financial literacy in the schools, tax credits for families who are trying to save for college, and for those of us who are property owners, a deduction of our property taxes on our state income tax return. These are some of the many different things I could do. In my professional work, I'm humbled knowing that people entrust me with their hard-earned wealth. I find it rewarding and humbling each time a client entrusts me, not just with their money, but with their dreams. So I will be honored and humbled to be your state representative, to represent you in your dreams. If you are looking for more common sense for our Commonwealth, I ask you for your vote. And for more information, please go to teamstevestang.com.
Thank you for all being here tonight. Tonight you've heard us discuss our experiences and our qualifications, and I know you've listened carefully. When Senator Steve Bedore left office, we had a seamless transition to Senator Katie O'Connor Ives. With Mike Costello no longer in the state rep seat, we need that same kind of transition. I believe there is a significant difference between me and my other candidates. You can learn more at my website, ed-cameron.com, which, as Councilor Herzog said, has plenty of timely content, and you're going to find more than platitudes there. 6 of my fellow Newburyport City Councilors and 3 Amesbury City Councilors have supported my campaign for state rep. I'm also honored to have the support of Senator Katie O'Connor Ives, former State Representative Mike Costello, and Mayor Donna Holliday. I have several endorsements from groups that share your values. My endorsements include Mass Teachers Association, Planned Parenthood, No More Fukushimas, and the Sierra Club. But this is about more than endorsements. This is about your support. I will be an effective and strong voice for you in the State House and represent your values, and I'm asking for your support on Tuesday, November 4th. Thank you.
State Representative. And as they all mentioned, we will echo, please get out and vote on Tuesday, November 4th. I'd like to thank our panel tonight, John McComb, the editor of the Newburyport Daily News, Kim Goby, sure, let's hear it for John. Kim Goby, the chair of the board of Greater Newburyport Chamber of Commerce. Paul Gagliardi, the chairman of the board of the Amesbury Chamber of Commerce. And Dan Ouellette, board member of the Salisbury Chamber of Commerce. All of those chambers of commerce, along with the Daily News, WNBP, and PortMedia that has broadcast this tonight, both on the web and on television, for those who are watching at home. And thank you all very much for those of you joining us here at the Nock School for the debate tonight. I'm Pete Falcone from WNBP. Thank you for your patience and your attention.